Yo, what's up, guys? It's Noah here, breaking down the MLB slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Tuesday, July the 28th. We're going to cover Tuesday's 9-game slate. Right now, Draftkings has it listed as 10 games, but it's actually 9 games today. The Orioles and Marlins game has already been canceled. Got canceled on Monday afternoon or Monday morning. Once we got news there was a COVID outbreak in the Marlins dugout, they went ahead and canceled Monday's game, and then they canceled Tuesday's game as well. Also, the Yankees-Phillies game on Monday night got canceled too. It was kind of scary, honestly. I was kind of getting a little scared for the season. Maybe that they would cancel the season because all it takes is one outbreak with this COVID disease, and that could really just make you have to shut everything down. But they're going to keep going on with the season, it seems like, at least as of Monday night. It seems like we're just going to keep trucking along with this MLB season. Hopefully there's no more outbreaks or anything, and the Marlins can get this figured out, and hopefully they'll be back to playing baseball pretty soon. But we're going to take a look at this 9-game slate for Tuesday, talk through DraftKings pricing, hit on some guys I like there, talk through Yahoo as well, talk about their pricing. We'll go through pitcher, hit on a few guys I'm looking to target at pitcher, who I'm looking to target that position. We'll talk about some hitters I like as well, and then towards the end of the video, we'll hit on a few stacks that I'm targeting. Don't want to give all my plays in this video. I do have stuff over on Patreon that you guys can check out. I do a full position-by-position breakdown over there. I write an article. I'm going to be doing articles for both NBA and MLB Monday through Friday. My article on Monday, it was like 13 or 14 pages long, very in-depth, going through all the pitchers I was targeting: catcher, first base, second base, third base, shortstop, outfield, touched on every position, touched on the guys I'm looking to target. Also went more in depth on the stacks that I like over on Patreon. So you can check out all the content I do have to offer over on Patreon. I do also give some home run calls over there, some core plays. If there's ever updates that I want to make, like yesterday we had to make some updates once that Orioles Marlins game got canceled. The Yankees-Philly game got canceled. Really changed a lot. So I post updates on core plays over on Patreon. Have more in-depth content over there. Also, I do have a Discord chat that you can join where we're talking through the slate every single day. Baseball, basketball, football. That's what we cover over on Patreon. So be sure to check that out. Link down in the description. You can follow me on Twitter as well. That's linked down in the description too. But without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at Tuesday's slate. I will start off at the top with pitcher. This is another very weak pitching slate. We have two guys 10K and above on DraftKings. We have Walker Buehler, who is a big-name guy, a very good starter, one of the best pitchers in the league, in my opinion. 11,300 for him. And then you have Merrill Kelly at 10K facing the Rangers. So just looking at these two guys, I don't really want to go to either guy today. Walker Buehler is clearly the best pitcher on the slate by a mile, in my opinion. But he's in a brutal matchup against the Astros. We know how good this Astros lineup is. They have one of the best lineups in the league. They do have a low implied run total at only 4.1 runs, but I don't know if this is a spot I want to pay 11.3 for Walker Buehler. Like, it's just such a good lineup top to bottom. There's not a ton of strikeouts either. You look at their strikeout rate last season versus right-handed pitching. It was actually dead last in the league, 17.8%. Like, the Astros just don't strike out. They put the ball in play, had one of the best batting averages versus righties. Their ISO was towards the top of the league as well, only behind the Twins and Yankees. You look at every other offensive category. I mean, WOBA, they led the league in WOBA versus righties. WRC Plus, they led the league in WRC Plus versus righties. Like, this is just a tough spot for Walker Buehler. There's also concerns with his pitch count. We don't really know how deep he's going to go in this game. It looks like he did pitch 3 innings in a scrimmage game a couple of days ago, or like 5 or 6 days ago. I assume he probably goes like 4 or 5 innings. They probably let him pitch maybe 70, 80 pitches. Like I said, I think it was a couple videos ago, like I think it was Saturday, we're not going to see pitchers pitch really deep into games early on in the season. You saw it with Tyler Glasnow on a Monday night slate. Like he was cruising, but he only pitched like 4 innings. I think they pulled him after like 75 pitches, but he was mowing down the Braves, and they still pulled him early. Like, guys are just not pitching deep into games right now. Buehler, I assume, probably goes 4 or 5 innings here, depending on what his pitch count looks like. We know the Dodgers are usually always pretty cautious with their starters anyway. Like, they don't really let their guys go 110, 120 pitches. So, tough matchup, pitch count concerns, high price tag. Like, there's just a lot of things not going in Walker Buehler's favor today. And Merrill Kelly, just not a guy that I want to pay $10K for. Just overpriced in my opinion. He's shown some upside, showed a little bit of upside last year. Had some games, with 8 strikeouts, 12 strikeouts, 6K, 7K, or excuse me, I was reading the wrong category, or I was reading the wrong column. 9Ks, 5Ks. Had a game with 9Ks. Like, he's shown some K upside. It is a much more favorable spot against Texas in terms of like ballpark. Texas's stadium this year is actually going to be pretty pitcher friendly. Normally we think of Texas as a great hitter's park, but they actually have a new stadium that has a roof, so that Texas heat's not really going to be in effect when you have the roof on. That's one of the reasons the Rangers ballpark was so hitter friendly, was because during the summer it would be like 95, 100 degrees in Texas. The ball would be flying at that stadium. Not going to be the case this year. So maybe in the future I'll be looking to target pitchers from the stadium. We are going to talk about Kyle Gibson later on in the video, who I do like over on Yahoo. But at Merrill Kelly's $10K price tag, I just don't want to go there. I just don't think it's necessary to spend that price tag for a guy that's just, kind of an average strikeout pitcher at best. I know he had some games with like 7, 8Ks last year, but that's usually not where you're going to get from Merrill Kelly. So don't really like any of these top options like Homer Bailey against the Cardinals for 9K. Don't really want to go there. He feels a bit overpriced. Carlos Martinez in a brutal spot against the Twins. Kyle Gibson on Draftkings at 9,700. I don't really want to go there either. But if we do go over to Yahoo, Kyle Gibson is very affordable over on Yahoo. Only $28. He's close to minimum salary over there. I think Kyle Gibson actually stands out as a pretty good pitching option on Yahoo. So Gibson, kind of an average pitcher. He's had some games where he would go out there and get like 8 or 9Ks last year. He has some spots where he would get blown up as well. Like, Gibson's definitely a risky option. You don't really know what you're going to get from him. But just looking at his numbers last season, he did do pretty well against right-handed hitters. Only allowed a 318 WOBA versus righties. Did get 25%, or does have a 25% K rate versus right-handed hitters. If we do look at this Diamondbacks lineup, it is going to have probably 4 righties in it, maybe more. Right now, the righties in the projected lineup are Starling Marte, Christian Walker, Carson Kelly, and Nick Ahmed. This is just their projected lineup, though. When their official lineup comes out, that can make me like Gibson even more if there's more righties in here. There are some good hitters at the top of this Diamondbacks lineup with Ketel Marte, who's really good. David Peralta's a solid hitter. Eduardo Escobar, a good hitter as well. But there's still strikeouts. You can get strikeouts from Starling Marte versus righties. Christian Walker will strike out a lot. Carson Kelly will strike out. Nick Ahmed will strike out. I like Kyle Gibson at only $28 on Yahoo. I think that price tag makes him a very intriguing option. On Draftkings, though, where he's the third most expensive pitcher, I don't really want to go there. But on Yahoo, he's like towards the bottom of the pitcher pricing. So $28, sign me up for some Kyle Gibson today as a cheap pitching option on Yahoo. I do like him quite a bit over there. But then just looking at some of the other pitchers we have today, like I could see going to Zach Davies. He's only 8K facing the Giants. Really favorable matchup. Bad Giants lineup. Not a ton of strikeouts in this Giants lineup. If we look at their K rate last season versus right-handed pitching, they were towards the bottom of the league or middle of the pack in strikeouts. Middle of the pack, dead center, 15th, 23% K rate versus righties. Not a ton of strikeouts at the top of the lineup like Mike Yastrzemski, Pablo Sandoval. Those guys don't really strike out, but Wilmer Flores, he will K a little bit versus righties. Hunter Pence will strike out. You can get some Ks from like Dubon as well. But overall, this isn't a team that really strikes out much. The reason you want to target Davies, though, is just because it's a bad lineup. There's not a lot of power here. Not a lot of guys you're scared of in terms of putting the ball in play. I mean, these guys will put the ball in play, but they're not really hitting fly balls or not making hard contact. There's going to be a lot of soft contact. It's a great pitcher's park as well in Oracle Park. Giant Stadium is probably the most pitcher-friendly ballpark in the league. So I do like Zach Davies at 8K. He still feels a bit overpriced, but the matchup is very friendly, so I did want to talk about him in that mid-range. But like Framber Valdez, I don't want to go there against the Dodgers. That's a brutal matchup. I could see going to Daniel Megden, 7,400 at home in Oakland against the Rockies. Pretty favorable matchup for Megden here, getting the Rockies outside of Coors Field. They do have one of the lower implied run totals on this slate at 4.2 runs. Megden is relatively a heavy favorite here at minus 162. The real reason you want to target him, though, is just it's a very favorable pitcher's park in Oakland. Oakland also has one of the more pitcher-friendly stadiums. The Rockies outside of Coors Field tend to always struggle If you look at WRC plus last year versus righties, this is a stat that factors in park factor, that factors in, like what ballpark you play in. Obviously, the Rockies play in the most hitter-friendly park in the league, Coors Field. You look at WRC plus, they were actually towards the bottom of the league in WRC plus versus righties last season, ninth in the league at 92 WRC plus. So when you get them out of Coors Field, you can definitely take pitchers against them, in my opinion. They did have a high K rate versus righties as well, 25.4%. So I do like Daniel Megden here at 7,400. I'm assuming that he's fully stretched out. He was a starter last season through, 80, 90 pitches like most starters do. I'm assuming that's probably what he throws today if he's pitching well. So I do like him at 7,400. He's very cheap on Yahoo too. Only $26 over here. I think Daniel Megden makes plenty of sense in that mid-range. And then a couple more guys I want to hit on. So Patrick Sandoval, I like a lot at 6,600. Sandoval, not really a pitcher that, has a ton of strikeout upside. Not a guy that I expect to be very good long-term. But the reason you want to target him today is because he's dirt cheap, and it's also a very favorable matchup against the Mariners. I've talked about this a lot so far, the few games we've had this MLB season. The Mariners are going to be a team you want to take pitching against. I know it didn't really work out Monday night with Josh James. Josh James was a guy I was very high on Monday night, along with a lot of other people. Like, he was the highest owned pitcher on the slate facing the Mariners. I watched that game, though, and James was doing very well through the first, 2 or 3 innings. I think he had, 14 fantasy points, had, 4 strikeouts or 5 strikeouts through 2 innings. And then it kind of all went downhill in 1 inning. He gave up, 2 leadoff walks. And then I'm pretty sure he was down to his final out, and then he gave up, a 2-run home run. And then he gave up, I can't remember, but it was maybe another few walks after that. I think it was the start of the 3rd inning. He allowed 2 walks and then got a double play. And then I can't remember who came up to bat, but someone came up to bat. It was a 1-2 count, and he hit a 2-run home run. And then after that 2-run home run, I believe he gave up 2 more walks after that, allowed an RBI single, and then he got a pop fly. But really all went downhill for Josh James in 1 inning. He was cruising, though, through the first few innings. I could see Patrick Sandoval having some success here against this Mariners team. I mean, for what it's worth, the Mariners right now, they do have the lowest implied run total on the slate. There are some games we're waiting for totals on, like this Royals-Tigers game, Mets-Red Sox game we don't have totals on yet. But out of all the games we have totals on, 3.8 implied run total is the lowest on the slate for the Mariners. Patrick Sandoval, a very heavy favorite at -183. Home favorite here. Just has a lot going for him in his favor. Really cheap price of 6,600. Not really a guy that has great numbers, as I talked about. He's just kind of an average pitcher. We do have some numbers to work on from last season. He faced about 170 total batters last season. Versus those 170 batters against lefties, he actually really struggled to lefties. He was kind of reverse splits. Allowed 3 home runs per 9 to lefties, only .89 to righties, but did get a lot more strikeouts versus righties, which is kind of weird given that he's a left-handed pitcher. 26.8% K rate to righties last season, 19% to lefties. High walk rate, which is obviously a concern, 11% to both sides of the plate. Got crushed by lefties, but again, it's a really good matchup, a bad Mariners lineup, a lineup that doesn't really have much power. There are some strikeouts in this lineup as well. Pretty sure versus left-handed pitching last season, the Mariners were towards the bottom of the league. Or this is actually for left-hand pitching, so I didn't mean to mention Colorado. I talked about Colorado earlier as having the 5th highest K rate versus righties, but that was actually versus lefties. So let me go ahead and adjust that real quick. So versus righties last season, Colorado, this is talking about Daniel Megden. I messed up earlier. So Colorado was 14th in terms of K rate versus righties, 23.2%, but I believe WRC plus, they were actually bottom in the league. Yeah, they were 4th worst in the league at 83 WRC plus. So that was a little quick update there on Daniel Megden. But going back to looking at left-handed pitching last season, talking about the Mariners, looking at K rate versus lefties, Seattle 6th most in the league, 24.8%, and their lineup didn't really change. So I do like Patrick Sandoval here. I think it's 6,600. He looks like a clear value at the pitcher position, especially on this weak pitching slate where I don't think I really want to spend up. I'm fine just rostering some cheap pitchers today that I think can get me 15 to 20 points, and then really spending up on the expensive bats. I think that's how I'm going to be approaching this slate. I like Sandoval a lot over on Yahoo as well. He's very cheap over there. Right now they don't have him listed as the starter, but I'm sure they'll update that probably tomorrow morning. I'm recording this video the night before, so sometimes stuff isn't updated the night before. Sandoval only $28 on Yahoo, same price as Kyle Gibson. I do like him a lot as a value over there as well. But last guy I want to talk about at pitcher is Jeff Samarjia. So Jeff Samarjia, kind of similar to Zach Davies, just gets a very favorable ballpark to pitch in Oracle Park. Also gets a pretty nice matchup as well against the Padres. The Padres do have some very good hitters in their lineup, but they also are a team that strikes out a lot versus right-handed pitching. 25.4% K rate versus righties last season. If we do look at their projected lineup for tomorrow, it's pretty similar to their lineup they ran out last year. Only difference is that they did add Tommy Pham, and they also added Jurickson Profar. Tommy Pham, a very good hitter, but will K a bit versus righties. Tatis is a great hitter, but he will strike out a lot. You can get a little bit of Ks from Manny Machado. I think his K rate versus righties is around like 20 or 22%. Can't remember off the top of my head. But like Will Myers will strike out versus righties. I think Mejia strikes out as well. There are definitely Ks in this Padres lineup. It's a great pitcher's park. Samarjia is very cheap at only $6,500. And if we do look at his numbers, he has had a lot of success against righties. Last season, only allowed a 263 WOBA to righties. Only gave up 1 home runs per 9. Not the best strikeout pitcher. Only about a 20% K rate to lefties, just 18% to righties. But still, the ballpark's great for pitchers. That's really one of the main reasons I like Samarjia. It's also a very cheap price tag for him, $6,500. Anytime he's pitching at home, it was kind of like this last year. Whenever Samarjia pitched at home in San Francisco, I seem to always have interest in him, especially when he was cheap, and that's kind of the case today. He's cheap, he's at home. It's a pretty favorable matchup against a relatively right-handed heavy lineup. Sign me up for some Jeff Samarjia at only $6,500 on this week pitching slate. You go with Sandoval and Samarjia, and that leaves you over $4,600 remaining per player to spend for your bats. So you can pretty much play just about any hitter you want. I mean, you're going to have to maybe plug in 1 or 2 cheap guys, but after that, you can literally play whoever you want with your bats. You can stack whatever team you want. So I'm going cheap at pitcher today. Don't see myself spending up for guys like Buehler or Kelly. I just think they're overpriced for the matchups. Same with like Gibson, Bailey, Martinez. I'll be looking to go to these cheap guys and then really loading up on the bat. So that's kind of what I'm looking to for pitcher. I think we covered every pitcher I'm looking to target. If there's some guys maybe that I'll dive deeper into, I will do that in my article over on Patreon. So if you want to get access to that, you can check out the Patreon link down below. But let's go ahead and talk about a few hitters that I like. Again, I'm not going to cover every single hitter. I will break down more in depth, or I'll go more in depth on the hitters, more hitters over on Patreon. For now, I'm just going to give you 2 to 3 guys that catch my eye looking at this like the night before. So we'll start off at first base with Pete Alonso. I think Pete Alonso is probably one of my favorite spend-up options on this slate. He's $5,500 on Draftkings. He's $21 on Yahoo. Very expensive, but like I said earlier, we went cheap at pitcher. We've got the salary to pay up here. Really just a smash spot for Pete Alonso, facing a left-handed pitcher in Matt Hall. So Matt Hall doesn't have a ton of major league background. Only faced about, just looking at it right here, only faced about 100 batters in 2019. In 2018, he faced only 48 batters in the majors, so we don't have a ton of track record from him, but just looking through those 2 years, looking at his career numbers, gave up a 370 WOBA to right-handed hitters, allowed a ton of hard contact as well, plenty of home runs. I mean, 1.16 home runs per 9 to righties. Actually really struggled with home runs to lefties, 2.25 home runs per 9 to lefties. Doesn't really get strikeouts either, just a 19% K rate to lefties, 20% to righties. The hard contact's there too, especially versus lefties. Hall's actually kind of been a little bit reverse splits. Versus lefties, he allowed 46.7% hard contact. So even if you're stacking the Mets, don't shy away from the lefties today. Usually when there's a left-handed pitcher on the mound, people just want to roster the right-handed hitters from the lineup. But in Hall's short career in the majors, he's actually kind of been reverse splits, has struggled more to lefties than righties. But I'm not really going to, when it comes to Pete Alonso and how well Pete Alonso does versus left-handed pitching, that's not going to shy me away from him, although Hall's kind of been reverse splits. I still love Pete Alonso in the spot. I mean, if you just look at his numbers versus left-handed pitching, they're absolutely insane. I mean, some of the best numbers I think I've ever seen. Versus lefties last year, Pete Alonso, looking at the advanced stats, Pete Alonso had a 381 WOBA versus lefties. Looking at home runs, his hard contact, 48.9% hard contact to lefties. I believe out of his home runs that he hit last season, only hit 14 out of Of his 54 home runs or 53 home runs last season, only 14 came versus left-handed pitching, which is kind of surprising. I would expect him to be more than that, but I guess he didn't face as many lefties. But still, this is a guy that mashes left-handed pitching. Love this spot for Pete Alonso. I mean, it's hard not to like him here. High ISO as well, 347 ISO versus lefties last year. Like I said, high WOBA, 381 WOBA. Just such a good spot for him. A guy that does strike out sometimes, like has I think around a 23 or 24% K rate, if I'm not mistaken. I can actually pull that up real quick. Let me see if I can find the K rate for Pete Alonso. So last year versus lefties, his K rate was at 32%, which is actually way higher than I thought it would be. I figured his K rate versus lefties would be a little bit lower than what it is versus righties, but still, I mean, the power is there. This guy just has so much power. All it takes is, for him to barrel up one ball and it's out of the stadium. We kind of saw that Monday night. He did homer Monday night. I think he feels like a pretty good spot to homer again here. Feels like a pretty good spot for him to homer again. Love the Mets today. I think they're in a very, very favorable spot. It will be interesting to see what their implied run total is here versus Matt Hall. We don't have any lines on this game yet. I assume the Mets come in with probably over a 5 implied run total, potentially even higher. Guys like Rosario, McNeil, Alonso, they're expensive, all 5K and above, but that should help keep their ownership down. You should easily be able to pay for these guys if you so choose, given that we have some viable cheap pitchers. There aren't really any pitchers you want to spend up for, I should say. So love me some Pete Alonso here versus the lefty. I think he's in a great spot, and $21 on Yahoo, $5,500 on DK. He's one of my favorite pay-up options on the slate. Then I want to talk about JD Martinez. So JD Martinez is another guy that absolutely mashes left-handed pitching, and he's expected to face David Peterson, who will be making his major league debut for the Mets. Love Martinez on both sides. He's expensive, but we got the salary to pay up for him. So looking at David Martinez, I don't think we have any numbers to go by, like in terms of major league numbers, obviously because this is his major league debut. I was looking at his minor league numbers, though, and they really weren't anything special. I mean, around like a 22 or 23% K rate, like a 3 ERA in the minor leagues. Not a guy that I'm going to be scared to take hitters against. I think a Red Sox stack makes a ton of sense here, facing a guy making his major league debut. And like I said earlier, JD Martinez absolutely mashes left-handed pitching. Numbers even better than Peter Alonso versus lefties last year. I mean, a 404 batting average versus lefties. Had a 482 ISO, 539 WOBA. Like, these are insane numbers. You look at the hard contact as well. I mean, just hitting the ball so hard versus lefties. 44.6% hard contact. When JD Martinez hits the ball versus lefties, he hits it hard. He hits it in the air. We look at his home runs. He actually faced, I believe, 3 times as many righties. So he faced 141 lefties last year. He faced 434 righties, and he still had more home runs versus lefties and righties. 19 of his 36 home runs last year came versus left-handed pitching. So this is a dude that just mashes left-handed pitching. Facing a lefty today, making his major league debut. Love this spot for JD Martinez. He's one of my favorite spend-up options as well, along with Peter Alonso. Those are two guys, whether I'm stacking the Mets or whether I'm just playing them as one-offs. They're going to be in a lot of my lineups today. Or whether I'm stacking the Mets or Red Sox, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to have a ton of Alonso and a ton of JD Martinez. I think both are in great spots. Both have a high chance of hitting a home run today. So love Martinez here. And then lastly, for Draftkings to finish out the 5 for you guys, I do like Alberto Mondesi again. He did kind of disappoint Monday night. As I'm recording this video, I think that game's in like the 6th or 7th inning. And right now, Mondesi, I believe, is 0 for 4, which really sucks, especially because the Royals are putting up a lot of runs on Monday night. But I'm going to be going right back to Alberto Mondesi. He's just too cheap. $3,400 for a guy that puts the ball in play, that steals bases at an incredibly high clip. Mondesi just has way too much upside to avoid at this salary. This is a guy that I expect will be probably $4,500 to $5K rest of the season. We're getting him at a huge discount right now. And like I said, he steals bases at a huge clip. That's where his upside comes from. All you need for him is to get a walk or get a single, get on first base, and he can steal second base and third base literally in 2 pitches. And just like that, he's got, 10, 12 Draftkings points, and it's paid off that salary. So love some Alberto Mondesi here. He will be facing a righty from the Tigers, so he'll get his better side of his platoon. He is better versus righties than lefties. He's a switch hitter. He's going to have the platoon advantage regardless, but I was looking at his numbers. He is better versus right-handed pitching. He does strike out less versus righties too, so that's a plus. But yeah, love me some Alberto Mondesi at 3,400. I just think he's too cheap for the upside he has. Really, we just need him to get on base, and he will steal. He'll run on anybody. Doesn't matter what pitcher it is, what catcher it is. Alberto Mondesi is going to look to steal bases every time he's on. So love him in that case. That just makes him such a high upside play. Really just need him to get on base to pay off that salary. So yeah, that kind of finishes out the DraftKings 5. I do like Mondesi on Yahoo. I think he's fine over there. He is priced up though. He's priced like he should be. He's $18. He's more of a DraftKings play. 3,400. I mean, that's just a stupid price tag for Mondesi. So to fill out the Yahoo 5, we're going to talk about a guy that's really good at baseball, and that is Mike Trout. We've got a ton of salary to spend up for bats over on Yahoo. Going with 2 cheap pitchers in Gibson and Sandoval just gives you so much salary. So might as well spend up for arguably the best hitter in baseball, Mike Trout here, facing a lefty in Justice Sheffield, who is just an average pitcher at best. Not a guy that I'm going to be afraid to take batters against, especially a guy like Mike Trout. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be full stacking the Angels. They're usually not a team that I full stack anyway, just because they don't have the best lineup. They have a solid lineup at the top, but once you get past like Justin Upton, like Albert Pujols, Taylor Ward, Tommy La Stella, Max Stassi, like these are not guys you want to roster. If you're going to stack the Angels, I think you want to do it with like a mini stack, whether that's Trout and Rendon or Trout, Rendon, Upton. Those are mainly the 3 guys I want to target, and Mike Trout for sure is the guy that I like the most here. Getting him versus a lefty is great. He gets the better side of his platoon split. He gets the platoon advantage. I know Trout mashes both sides of the plate. It doesn't really matter. Lefty, righty, the dude's just going to hit the ball hard. He's going to hit home runs no matter who's on the mound. It could be Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole. It doesn't really matter. I mean, Trout's going to go out there and put on a show. He's just so good. Puts the ball in play, doesn't strike out. Love Mike Trout here. $25 is expensive, but I got the salary to pay up for him, so might as well pay up for the best hitter in baseball and facing an average pitcher with a lefty in that to a left-handed pitcher, so Trout getting the platoon advantage. Love him in the spot. Love him as a one-off. Not necessarily going to be full stacking the Angels, but Trout is a guy that I do like a ton here. So that's kind of what I'm liking for this 9-game slate for Tuesday. Now, before we do in the video, I want to hit on some stacks that I like. So I did talk about the Red Sox. Some of their righties I like versus David Peterson. Guys like JD Martinez, Sander Bogarts. Kevin Pillar actually been really good so far this season. I believe he already has 2 homers this season. I like him up quite a bit at 3,300. Christian Vasquez looks like a really solid catcher play at 4,200. You got value with a guy like Michael Chavis, only 2,700. But I still wouldn't avoid rostering some of the lefties, even though they'll be facing a lefty. Andrew Benintendi, Rafael Devers, I still do like quite a bit. And I would expect them to come in at pretty low ownership, given that it's a lefty-lefty matchup. So I like the Red Sox quite a bit here. I do like some Mets as well. Mainly Peter Alonso and guys like Cespedes, the guys that have power. But we saw the Mets can put up runs. I mean, this is a good lineup. This is a solid lineup. They are overpriced on DraftKings. Like, they have a lot of guys in their lineup over 5K. Rosario, McNeil, Alonso, Conforto, all 5K and above. So you're going to get them at pretty low ownership. Maybe Peter Alonso comes in around 10-15%, but I would expect everyone in this Mets lineup is probably going to be under 10% besides Alonso. So if you want a low-owned stack that has some upside, I think targeting some Mets bats makes plenty of sense today. I do like them quite a bit. But, like, we kind of have to wait and see. Like, we don't know who's pitching for the Royals-Tigers. I think we do know that, I believe his name is Agrazal, or I think it was Agrazal pitching for the Tigers last I saw. I checked on MLB.com. See, right now DraftKings has it as Ronnie Garcia, so we don't really know. I mean, we'll have to wait and see there. Don't know who's going to pitch for the Royals. We could we can wait and see and what kind of run totals we get in this game, depending who's pitching. I guess you could target some Twins versus Carlos Martinez, but Carlos Martinez is not usually a guy that I stack against. He's always been better versus righties than lefties, so if you're going to stack against Martinez, you probably want to target the lefties, guys like Kepler, Polanco, Rosario. The righties, though, I mean, the righties in this lineup are really, really good. Josh Donaldson, Nelson Cruz, arguably been the hottest hitter in baseball so far this season in this short sample. Mitch Garver, Miguel Sano, like the 1 through 7. This lineup is scary good, 1 through 7. So I don't mind some Twins here. The Twins just seem to always put up runs no matter who's on the mound, no matter who they're facing. It seems like the Twins always put up at least 4 or 5 runs a night. So I could see going to the Twins, but I don't know, man. Like, stacking's kind of weird today. There's not a ton of stacks that just really stand out as, like, top stacks here. Like, I could see using some Brewers versus Derek Holland, but in Pittsburgh, I don't really see myself going too crazy on the Brewers. I think the Red Sox are going to be a team I'm pretty heavy on, facing a guy making his Major League debut. I like some Mets as well, but I don't know if I'll be full stacking the Mets. Might just be targeting guys like Alonso, Cespedes as maybe one-offs, two-man stacks. Yeah, like, stacks are kind of hard today. I don't really want to stack guys in this Pittsburgh game, or in this San Francisco and San Diego game, just because the ballpark's so bad for hitting. Same here with this Oakland game. Like, the ballpark's just so bad for hitting. I could see some Oakland guys making my lineups, maybe like a Matt Olson or a Chris Davis, the guys that have power. But again, I don't know if I'll be full stacking Oakland. I could see targeting a few Dodgers, some righties versus Valdez, like Mookie Betts, 4,700, Turner, 4,900. But again, just don't think it's a team I'm going to be full stacking, only a 4.7 implied run total. Right now, I think the Red Sox are a team I like a lot. I like the Mets quite a bit. Depending on who's pitching in this Royals and Tigers game, this could definitely be a game worth targeting, depending on who's pitching. I'm sure it's probably going to be like a bullpen game again for both teams. Some Brewers I do like as well versus Derek Holland, specifically the righties, like Lorenzo Cain. Ryan Braun I liked a lot Monday night. I'll probably be back on him again Tuesday night against the lefty. You got some value in this lineup with Jed Jorko. He batted 5th Monday, so if he bats 5th again, 2,700, that's pretty good value. But yeah, I think that's it for stacks. I'll dive more into some stacks I like in my article over on Patreon. If you want to check that out, like I said at the beginning of the video, my Patreon is linked down below in the description. You can also follow me on Twitter. That's linked down below in the description too. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy, hit that like button before you do get out of here. Make sure you subscribe as well. I'm back to uploading daily videos on this YouTube channel. I'm going to have a lot of content coming out for you guys, so be sure to hit that subscribe button, click the like button as well, and I think that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.